going deeper and deeper into the retreat and this whole journey together. In Zen, sometimes there's the saying, strong dharma, strong karma. Which means, when we really investigate and deeply clarify things, also, it opens things up for things to come to the surface. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it goes. This whole human life thing is certainly not all rainbows and unicorns. But who would want it? All rainbows and unicorns. It's so boring. And there's this in Japan, very often they speak of like a retreat, like a climbing the mountain. And it's interesting, like maybe from like a little bit our culture, it kind of would seem like the trajectory is like you just climb. The last day is this peak thing, right, or something. But actually, the way it's spoken of is more of like the middle of it is the peak, right, and then it's kind of going down. Not in terms of our commitment, not in terms of potential for transformation or this clear seeing, not in terms of I don't know what else, but rather about just pointing out the dynamic, right? Like when we walk down the mountain, like time passes faster because it's like climbing up is it just takes time. It takes but then going down suddenly it's like just like it's unfolding, starts unfolding quite quickly, and also sometimes our legs are a little bit tired, right? So most of the accidents happen rather on the descent. Something in us is a little bit already kind of maybe thinks ahead, or just the momentum of walking down, like it's almost has this pull that sometimes just can takes us into the weird directions. So it's just, it's definitely not to put ourselves, like, just think in terms of timeline or anything like that. It's rather just like to point out that, when we go deeper and the retreat progresses with more and more sort of accumulated power of the work and the inquiry that we have done, it's good to have a little bit of caution and just like observe what our mind would like to start make up or make out of it, or maybe it's getting a little bit already tired of all this silence and actually misses the good old times when we're singing Madonna, whatever else was going on. But there's this very famous poem. Some of you know that there's this teacher in America, Shunryu Sukiroshi, who founded San Francisco Zen Center. So in '59, when he was leaving his temple in Shizuoka, Rinsoi, in Shizuoka Prefecture, Japan, Rinsoi, it's not that often that someone steps down as an abbot, right? Like it's a big ceremony, and there needs to be a replacement for that and all of that. So there's a lot of formalities and ceremonies around that. So he was stepping down, and he was reciting a poem during the ceremony, which wasn't his own. I honestly don't remember now the author, but oh well, doesn't matter really. And the poem is about Shakyamuni Buddha, who went to the wilderness to kind of finally solve the problem of birth and death and suffering, and save others from suffering, right? Because he saw the paradigm, like there's this insatisfactoriness and various forms of suffering are part of life, and he was deeply concerned about that, how to is there a way to live the life that is deeply fulfilled and not marked by continuous push and pull of anxiety, of difficulty and all of that. So he went to the mountains and practiced there, and this poem speaks about that. Probably everybody knows the story, right? Like he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, and then when the morning star, it was Venus, came up, he saw the star, and that was his sort of great realization under the Bodhi tree. But this poem says, when he saw a morning star, his confusion only grew. So the path down the mountain is actually path up the mountain. All his life, he wanted to save all beings. Now he can't find even a single one. It's a really beautiful poem. In Japan, even when we go to the monastery, we call it going up the mountain, jozan. Like you go up the mountain, because usually monasteries were up the mountain, but it's kind of like whatever was happening spiritually, you kind of were going from the valleys to the mountains. That's basically the idea, right? So Shakyamuni went to the mountains, and then after he solved whatever he needed to solve, he was about to take path down the mountain, right? To go back to the valley, to share whatever he discovered. So, and likewise in a monastery, when you leave the monastery, you say, "Gezan, I'm leaving. I'm going down the mountain." That's kind of just so ingrained in the language. So that, this line in the poem speaks to that. In Japanese, it says, "Gezan no michi wa sunowachi jōzan no michi datta." It's like so the path down the mountain actually turns out to be path up the mountain. And it is a little bit like that this whole process, when it unfolds, it's kind of like just becoming more and more paradoxical in some ways, right? It's more and more, the deeper it goes, the more kind of, just mind can't make sense of it in some way. All his life, all this time, he wanted to save all beings. Now he can't find even a single one. In a certain way, from the perspective of true non-duality, which is actually, which happens to be kind of no self, because the self mechanism is always like a little bit making things separate in a more and more subtle way, right? Like it's not at first. It's kind of, so intense, right? This sense of like, okay, I'm here, everything is there. I have to make my way through this whole mess and just, don't get killed and don't get arrested. At least that's mine. But then, it kind of it gets a little bit thinned out, right? Like, we explore and it's like, oh, there's the scene. It's kind of mirror-like, empty, luminous appearance. And in the scene, there's only the scene. Sometimes the sort of interlock between senses, you know, it's kind of trying to create this mirage, right? Like, but there's sensations here, and I see it, and all of that, and you know, there's sensations here, and then I hear, you know, like it's all kind of like, you know, again, it's just kind of giraffe balloon thing, right? Like just creating it, and it's like, okay, like it kind of makes sense, right? Like it's and everybody is speaking, you know, the whole society, like we all grow up in that way. So of course, like that's the impression you're left with, right? Like, there's something at the center of it all, and all of that. But then, you know, with the untying of those things, like, there's just the sound. Knows itself. No one outside of it can know it. How could it? Just, you know, it makes no sense in a way. In the immediate experience, right? Like we're not kind of arguing with whatever. And then same with the color, right? Like, there's just the textures and colors. How could anyone but color know color, right? Sensations. Standing alone, you know, one with itself, knowing itself. So then, you know, we go through all those gates, and in the end, it's like there's nothing left in it, right? It's the whole kind of peeling the layers of the onion, and then there's like a mini super onion inside or anything like that. There's just like, just another layer, and then it's like, there's nothing. It was all layers. So in the same way, it's like, you know, in the sound, there's only the sound. In the color, there's only the color. In the sensation, there's only sensation. In the thought, there's only a thought. So, you know, where was the problem? You know, where was the... Who was agonizing over the great matter of birth and death? Sound? Color? Sensation? Smell? Or fragrance? Thought? I guess more often than not thought. But so in a way, like, you know, seeing, actually, there couldn't be anyone in the midst of it, right? Then how would you assume that there be anyone, right? Like, it's not like, like, let's say, like a sage who goes into the mountains is destroying the self, right? It's you know, the old metaphor with the rope in a corner of a room, and the person comes in and freaks out. There's a snake in the house, and there's the fear and you know, the response, the kind of physical response to all of that, and then, you know, bringing up the kind of candlelight of a clear seeing and just putting it there. It's like, it's a rope. It's not like snake got killed or anything like that, right? Like, you just saw the reality versus the, you know, the kind of mirage that was produced. So in the same way, it's you know, when I discover it here in the exact same way, like you know, that's basically the situation, right? So therefore, you know, this last line, all this time he wanted to save all beings. Now he can't find even one. You know, there's not like a clarification makes it clear everywhere, right? Like in a way. So then there's not like a big problem, right? Problem kind of can be seen only, when someone reports it or something, right? Like when you. So like there's an idea, like those people should wake up, they should this, or like it's like, oh, people are great, it's awesome. And then if someone asks like, oh man, I have been on the spiritual journey for this and this years, and it's like, and then it's kind of okay, I remember that kind of view. It's not like there's problem with the view. I mean, as long as it appears problem for someone, like you can experience the problem. It's not like there's a sense of a problem being there actually. It's just awesome appearances. But yeah, sometimes this sort of rite of passage into it, I guess it sometimes can hear a little bit like trippy or difficult or like, and I definitely understand that and have experienced a little bit of that. For some people, just the sort of dying off of self is to the reminder of the self. It can be anywhere from like mildly surprising / disappointing / disconcerting to kind of overwhelmingly frightening and difficult. But for the most part, I guess if we are one of those, most of us, I guess, go through it in a certain sequence. So it's actually by the time it comes, it's there's not as much of a thing left in it. But still, it's we were speaking yesterday about Jesus, right? And I feel like this is the sort of really powerful image of him, on the cross and saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Kind of before the resurrection, right? Before the kind of freedom of it is fully tasted. There can be this kind of moment of like, oh, I thought there will be a happy end to the story of me, that I'll get there and I'll live forever after happily. And it appears it's not about that. So yeah, I'm always pretty impressed that it's survived being in the Bible, right? Like it's like Buddhism, like Buddha was just a perfect person, right? Like just he never had a bad day. I mean, he died of pork poisoning basically, so maybe he gave him a little bit of something there, but most of the part, like it's just like he's the blessed one, he's the world honored one, right? Like he's the gods come and bow to him kind of thing. I mean, humans like to have this sort of like a perfection outside of themselves to kind of look up to. Well, that's fine too. But it's so interesting that they left it, in the Gospels. That there is this moment. I kind of, like people, when I grew up in a very Catholic country, one of the most Catholic countries out there, and mostly they would just quote John, right? They're just like variation there. Like so, I think in the Gospel of John he says, "Father, in your hands I rest my spirit," or something, right? but in I think in Mark and Matthew, there's this line where you know, basically it's dark, right? Like from noon until 3 p.m. is the darkness came over the land, and he just keeps hanging, right? Like on the cross for 3 hours. There's just like nothing really there to report, and then at 3 p.m. I think I mean, there are different versions of it. In some of them, he gets the vinegar or, you know, wine thing before it, some after. But anyway, basically the last thing he says is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Right? And he dies. Which, you know, it's a very powerful sort of image, and I do feel like, you know, trying to find the correspondence in a spiritual journey, you know, that's basically it, right? Like you kind of like there's this moment where it kind of dawns on the self mechanism. It's like, oh, I get it now. And it's, you know, it's definitely not that difficult for everyone. There are people for whom it's just like, you know, like a kind of momentary seeing and recognition and then, you know, just kind of unfoldment of the sounds and sensations just goes on, and that's it. But, you know, to the degree that there is a little bit of like the mechanism left, it you know, it can be a little bit difficult for some time. It can't continue to be difficult forever, you know. It's kind of almost like a, you know, like a whatever deer that was shot with a mortal arrow, right? So, you know, it won't run forever. Like there's you know, there will be some struggle or something, but it kind of comes to an end. And happens, you know, like the word nirvana itself, right? Is the image is of like a candle blown out, right? There's a flame on it. So it's you know, just dying off of the fire of ignorance. That's basically what's happening. But, you know, it's, you know, sometimes it is sort of yeah, it's, you know, there can be period of grief, you know, and this entire process contains a lot of grief on all stages, right? Like, you know, some, you know, even if we, you know, don't relate to Jesus on the cross, but I mean, let's say, you know, maybe we had different friends that we like to hang out with, and then we started to explore this whole spiritual thing, and suddenly it's like, oh, we don't have same subjects to talk to, and, you know, like things are kind of being let go of, things are dropping away in some ways, and, you know, things are changing, and, you know, that's just you know, part of the game sometimes, or you know, things that we liked, you know, the way we like to distract ourselves with some stuff, right? And suddenly there's like no flavor in it. It's like things are just taken away in some way, and the sort of a loss. It's just, you know, it's just part of it. There's a little price for freedom. Love it. The price is, you know, mostly what causes suffering anyway. So it's like, so, you know, before the retreat we were talking in the kitchen. I was kind of maybe overstating a little bit the whole point of like how self can't want no self and all of that, and I do feel like there's a little bit of truth to that, you know, still. there's a couple kind of references in the culture besides the gospel thing. Like for me, a little bit, there's something about the kind of finale of the Lord of the Rings that kind of hits home with that, right? There's this, Gollum. Probably most of you read or saw, right? Gollum is this, creature that had the ring for some hundreds of years and have lost it and all of that, and they're going to the Khazad Dûm to kind of drop the ring to the where only it can be destroyed, right? And Gollum is just his mind is he's obsessed with that, right? And it's kind of he's precious, like he just he's all obsessed about this thing that he needs to get, right? And it's kind of a little bit like, oh, we need to get this enlightenment thing. And it's kind of like this continuous chase, and kind of like, and then there's this scene when they are standing right at the edge of it, and then Frodo also, like, he just can't let go of it, and he puts the ring on his finger, right? And Gollum jumps on him and bites it off, and he starts to fall into the kind of lava at the bottom of the volcano. And right when he puts his finger, this is in the movie how they made it. I thought there's quite a bit of crappy scenes in the movies part, but I thought this was good. And the ring just falls on his hand right, and he just goes into the lava, and it's kind of all obliterated. So I don't know, rings and bells. So it feels a little bit like that. There's also a song. Very popular song, everybody knows it here. I just happened to hear it a few times when I was going through this shift. There are a couple lines there that's for some reason kind of for me also like captured this whole kind of paradigm. I'm not sure. It's probably like my thing. Probably people won't like it. It'll be even more obscure than the Gollum thing. But how does it go? I can't remember if I cried when I read about this widow bride. Something touched me deep inside the day the music died. It's something about the I also, like, during the shadow work I did cry a lot. I had various emotions come up, but I don't remember if I cried when this whole thing was happening. It wasn't that kind of intense or anything, but the words widowed bride, it's something a little bit like that. It's like there's this thing that you wait for, right? Like there's this young woman who has all her life in front of her, and kind of being a bride is something kind of people wait for, right? It's this kind of thing you look forward to it and dream of how it will be, and it's kind of supposed to be this most special thing that ever happens. And then it's kind of like the moment you say yes, the groom is dead, right, or something like that. Like there's just this combination of those two things. And also that there's this for so long there's this selfing mechanism, and at first it's so loud and primary, but yet then there is it kind of becomes like a background music in a way, You know, it's just like it's you know, it's kind of like we were talking with Steven. There is something there, but can't even put your finger on it. It's kind of like just this background music that feels like, you know, kind of meanness or you know, like just something still there, and this kind of, you know, there's vivid, luminous sounds and sensations and colors and everything, but somewhere in the background there's just kind of music. So there's just this day comes where the music dies. It's no more. But then, you know, there's freedom. There's freedom from, you know, personal suffering, let's say. Suffering is certainly experienced as such in, you know, in whatever is arising, and discomfort is experienced and pain is experienced and all of that. But the whole paradigm of project of my life, you know, it's gone. The music died, and it's actually freeing. You know, it's actually beautiful. In retrospect, it all, you know, it's all kind of funny. how it was like this big thing. So, you know, we were speaking with Sally and about like, she was quoting someone that says like, oh, you know, it was kind of difficult and all of that, but, you know, I wouldn't change it or something, right? Yeah, and it's just like, it's hard to think in those terms for me. Like, it all feels like a dream anyway, right? Like it all feels like like as if I would like I watched a movie, but it was like a cartoon. You know what I mean? So I, you know, I wouldn't think of like, oh, should I become back the Mickey Mouse or like whatever the cartoon character was? You know what I mean? Like, you know? I appreciate your expression now, Nicole. Anyway, because I am also baffled by, you know, by the whole idea. And I think that was in the Gospel of Thomas, right? There's this passage which says, "Let the one who seeks until he finds, and when he finds, he will be troubled. And when he will be troubled, he will be astonished. And when he will be astonished, he will rule over all." This whole rule over all, I'm not sure, you know, I guess it's maybe like a little bit of a sales pitch at the end or something. Because it's not like there's a sense of you know, anyone ruling over anything, but in a way, you know, I feel like, you know, there's a truth in this trajectory. You know, whoever will seek until they find, and when they'll find, they'll be troubled. But then they'll be troubled, they'll be astonished. And they'll be astonished, then, you know, reality alone is. And kind of the paradoxical nature of it, how intimate and how beautiful things can be without anyone to enjoy them or behold them. It's one of those paradoxes. It's you know, it's impossible. Just a few weeks ago, we were house sitting at our good friend from monastery, Jijon, and this little dog. His name is Marco. And Marco is black and white, but his belly is pink. And he's a very handsome puppy. And he, not very sharpest. Very fine puppy. And just the amount of love that you can feel playing with the puppy. You know, it's impossible. You know, is it worth the price? I don't know. It's everybody's own arc of investigation. I would say that in a rear view mirror, the price looks like just like a cartoon character. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, worth nothing at all. So and colors, sounds, sensations, emotions, thoughts, they're just priceless. I mean, just, you know. My teacher used to say, wonder of wonders, wonderful. Wonder of wonders.